So we'll see. This should open it up, I think. This is always a fun game. And it is recording. Yep. Cool. Excellent. So welcome, folks, as we're hopping in. Thanks for joining today. We'll get going in a couple minutes here after we get some time for everybody to kind of join. And you're recording too, right? The session? Yes. Yep. So this will be recorded and posted, and I'll go over this again. But generally, Nick, you and I will have a bit of conversation. I have some kind of seeder questions, and then we'll actually open it up for the attendees kind of to ask some questions, and we'll take some from the crowd and kind of address what they're curious about as well. Oh, good. Yeah, we'll probably give it a good 2 or 3 minutes at least. We'll likely start a little bit before 5 after the hour. Sure, no problem. Yeah, I'm jealous of the baby Yoda. You need to, if you had really been on top of the dynamic backgrounds, you could have just been the face of baby Yoda. It's funny because, of course, a lot of people make fun of me now because my ears. Oh, sure. Well, it wasn't fully intended at first, but I know I own it. But you have to admit, you don't see a lot of government logos. I'm going to remove myself from the. Y'all have one of the better ones. Right. If not the best. I mean, you can even go as far as saying the best, I would say. I think so. So between Smokey the Bear and Baby Yoda, I think we win. Yep. I had a fun time with my lawyers, the DoD lawyers. Oh, I'm sure. I'm actually surprised. Yeah, because Disney is like famously protective there. Yeah, but there's actually a law, right, again with satire, right? So any logo that's used for satire, there's no enforcement of copyright. So there's always ways in life. Plus with the government, we're nice. We smile. Cool. And yeah, and just for folks that are hopping in, thank you all for coming. We're going to get going in just a couple minutes here, but we're just waiting for more folks to kind of trickle in, give plenty of time there. And people can ask questions in the Q&A box, right? Is that right? Exactly. Yeah. So please, as y'all are coming in, a good part of this is going to be questions from the audience. I certainly have enough questions to fill the time, but that would likely be very boring for y'all. So the goal is for y'all to be able to ask questions and get info that y'all want, that you're curious about. So please, if you already have things that you're interested in or curious about, go ahead and type them into the Q&A box. As those start to appear, I believe folks can go and vote as well. So please upvote ones that you're actually curious about so that we can give you all some answers that are actually interesting. I don't know if the answers are going to be interesting, but well, hopefully the at least questions might be interesting. Yes. Yeah, we'll do our best. Yes. You do need to get a fancy background too, though. I'm bad. We have really nice fancy Tetrate ones across a variety of different environments. I can be in a coffee shop, I can be on the beach, in the airport, but I just have been bad and not gone and set them up. I think I have one also at the Pentagon. Let's see. Oh, that was cool. Yeah, no, I much prefer the I can. You want to go at the Pentagon? You want to go to the Pentagon? Oh, that's cool. Let's go to Mars. I like Mars. There you go. Well, of course, Kubernetes. You need one. Right. Nice. No, I need to up my Zoom game. I'm not there. Another Pentagon. If you want to go in the hallway of the Pentagon. Here we go. But my favorite is, I don't know if I still have it. It's this one. Oh, hey, there you go. Shuttle thing. The in space, yeah. Is that like the bridge from the brig from one of the more recent Star Trek movies? No, that's something that we built. Are you kidding me? Is it really? It's real. Oh, that's cool. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. I was gonna say that's like pretty impressive there. If we did, I couldn't tell you. Oh, you'd have to die.
So
yeah, well, remember you're being recorded right now, so.
I'll
Alrighty,
pretend,
so
you hack me.
Yeah, there you go. So we are 5 minutes after the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get rolling, folks. Thanks for joining, Nick. Thanks for joining us as well. I'll intro you in just a second here. So just to give context for all the guests, as you're coming in, this is going to be an open discussion. I'll seed some questions with Nick here, but really the goal is for y'all to get answered things that y'all want. So please go ahead and drop questions into the Q&A. If the question is interesting to you, please vote on it as well, so that we can kind of order the ones that we're going through. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So with us, hey, I'm Zack Butcher. I'm one of the founding engineers here at Tetrate. I was one of the earliest engineers on the Istio project. And I'm currently on the Istio steering committee as one of the community elected seats. So thank you all, some of the Istio community that's here today, I'm sure. And with me is Nicolas Chaillan, who is the Chief Software Officer of the US Air Force. And additionally, and very relevant for us today, runs the DevSecOps joint program, which is a program that is across the entire DoD. Nick, why don't we start off with, why don't you tell us a little bit about the joint program and what y'all are accomplishing there, and maybe at the same time, if you could tell us a little bit about what DevSecOps means to you, right? Because it's a marketing term that's kind of very overloaded. So why don't we start with what does DevSecOps mean for you, and then what the joint program is hoping to accomplish.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, when I started, we were already massively adopting DevOps, and I found it to be a little lacking on the cyber side, and not just the basic static dynamic analysis. I think that's DevOps, and we all agree that's part of the basic pipeline. What we like to think of DevSecOps is really more about the continuous monitoring piece, the baked-in security. So we use the concept of sidecar containers to inject a lot of the cyber stuff. We use a service mesh like Istio to do the enforcement of zero trust. And more importantly, also we have a behavioral detection, not just scanning of CVE. So we have a continuous monitoring with AI machine learning, behavior-based detection. So we proactively kill containers if they drift in behavior. And then we use infrastructure as code and GitOps, and so those are kind of the foundation of DevSecOps. And for us, it's on Kubernetes, it's on OCI compliant containers, it's the service mesh, and it's the decoupling of these microservices, so we can release at a pace of relevance. And particularly for weapon systems, we run Kubernetes on jets, bombers, weapon systems, space systems, nuclear systems. And it's really obviously critical, and you can mess up. I think it's not like a mobile app on at a retailer, right? Obviously, a lot of security, air-gapped environment, classified clouds, on-premise, edge use cases, on the jet, on the device itself. So a lot of complexity, and having that abstraction layer and that orchestration and the self-healing. That enforcement of baked-in cyber as a sidecar model, which we really, when people really understand it, I think many people still struggle with the sidecar model. But one of the great example of that is Envoy with Istio, right? On how they can inject capability directly without having to touch really the container itself. That gives you that abstraction and decoupling that is really game changing when you start using different programming languages. We have 16 programming languages, 23 databases on our stack. So and the DevSecOps initiatives, it's a joint team with DoD CIO. I'm the co-lead with DoD CIO, and we're trying to really bring a couple of things. One is that architecture, design, and abstraction and cyber stack. And then we have enterprise teams. And I think for organizations that have the size of DoD, and we're the largest organization on the planet, obviously, both in terms of budget and people, I have 100,000 people to train just in 1 year. That's just 1 year. Yep. You can imagine the complexity of that. And the size of, just F-35 is $1 trillion funding with a T, right? So in 10 years. So I don't know if you know many programs that have that kind of money. I don't. On the commercial side.
No, certainly few and far between, right?
And really, that gives you, though, right, the kind of an understanding of the scale. And we want to bring enterprise capabilities, right? We want to bring, first, we have the Iron Bank, and we have cool names, right? We have the Iron Bank, which is this centralized repo of containers, kind of a Docker Hub on answer it with more secure, more better scanning, more assessment. And I can tell you, we found so much stuff that people missed over the years on a lot of projects, including some of the most used open source and commercial projects in DevSecOps, and we make them patch it, and everything we do is open source. That's also a big push that I did. I managed to convince the DoD to open source back everything we do. Everything is open source. All the infrastructure as code, the Terraform, the containers, the Docker files, and then we sign the containers with a key, a DoD key, and those are even available for download. So we can be your registry of container. So you can pull these somewhat more trusted, I guess, supply chain, at least trusted bits. And we have about 200, containers right now. Some of the more critical stuff that everybody pretty much use, from, databases, API gateways, service mesh. I mean, we have Istio, of course. We have Knative, and we have a bunch of different things. But that's kind of the vision, is to bring that enterprise capability. So teams can stop, reinventing the wheel and focus on their mission software, and not have to rebuild the platform team, build a service mesh, and we support multiple Kubernetes distribution. We use OpenShift, we use Convoy, we use Rancher, we use VMware. So we have a bunch of options, and we're looking at even more options now. The complexity also for us is we have to run on real-time OS. Not many people even know what real-time OS is, but all these systems run on real-time, time-sensitive, OSs for embedded systems, and same thing for cars and space systems and stuff like that. So we're bringing Kubernetes on real-time systems, which is a whole set of other challenges as well.
Yeah, I'm curious. We might, if we have some time at the end, I'd love to dig into some of the challenges there, because I think that's something that not a lot of people have dealt with. So I think you very nicely also kind of answered some of my follow-ons, which is, why was this necessary for y'all to start adopting? I think you answered that pretty clearly. So one of the things I want to kind of dig into is what are some of the challenges that y'all have hit so far, kind of starting to build this platform for all these disparate environments? And obviously, so I'm sure that there's a litany of technical challenges, which might be interesting, but I'm actually a little bit more interested in some of the organizational challenges. Like you touched on, DoD is the largest organization in terms of headcount on the planet right now, right? Yeah. How do you start to approach the technically delivering this platform to them? And one of the reasons I want to touch on this is, we do a lot with large enterprise customers, right? And as you know, intimately, the biggest challenge is the people, right? Not the projects and the technical stuff. So how have you started to grapple with that, and how has the program grappled with that within the DoD and started to affect change there?
Yeah, well, the first challenge was to make sure that people would let me in the building, because I have a French accent and people were like, are you supposed to even be here? But once I got past the building, I think the silos and we have obviously a lot of people, right? Like you said, a lot of silos, a lot of different teams, and it's really segmented across DoD, both in the DoD components and also within the components. We have dozens of teams doing different things, and they have to do it because there was nothing done centrally by the enterprise. So we ended up with a bunch of snowflakes and a bunch of shadow IT stuff going all over the place. And you compound that with a side of the teams, and you compound that with the classified environments, right? So for us, if you take a use case of an F-35 or any program, we end up with a lot of environments, right? From unclassed secret, top secret, and even higher than that, right? We have a lot of different classification levels. I know you end up having dev, test, staging, pod environments times 8, 9, and so you can imagine you want no drift. You want to have that automation. You want to be able to push across air-gapped environments. So we have all these issues of scanning, reassessing software. So really doing that centralized scanning of the containers was a massive win. And by the way, we saved 100 years of time. Just so people understand, in 1 year, we saved 100 years of time by moving these 37 programs to DevSecOps. Now we have 60 programs, so the time saved is tremendous, and that compounds over years, right? So it's just incredible, the timeliness piece of that, right? The culture piece, right? Back to your people problem. I always put a caveat to that, right? Because people say, the tech is easy and culture is hard. I think it's not fully true, right? Because I can tell you, if tech was easy, culture change will be easier, right? I think some of the reason why culture is hard is because people struggle with that continuous learning piece, right? I mean, look at Istio, look at Service Mesh. It's the foundation of my stack and the DoD stack here. And yet, Istio didn't exist, what, 3 years ago? I don't even know, but
Yeah, 4 years ago.
4 years.
2017 we launched. Yep.
And 2017, I mean, that wasn't big adoption. So, I mean, you're
Exactly.
talking really scale, let's say 2 years real scale, right? And yet it's foundational to what we do. And that tells you a lot. I mean, that used not to be the case, right? Even outside of DoD, on the commercial side, the pace used to be, 10 years, maybe even 20 at first, and 10 years, and then 5. And now we're at a 2-year cycle. And continuous learning has been the primary reason why culture change is hard, because a lot of people are stuck in time, and they spend so much time and money on education, and then so much time and money again on certification that are completely obsolete. And when you look at, and I have some of them, I'm on the board of some of them too. So, whatever. The fact is, by the time you pass those certifications, the skills you end up having are completely obsolete 99% of the time. And so how do you keep up, right? And so that impacts your culture, because now you have to reinvent yourself. And for people, it's hard, right? You have a job, you have a family, you have things to do. You can't just continuously learn. So we give an hour a day to our people to go and, access our learning hub. And it's a self-learning environment where we brought unbiased content, very important, right? If you look at a lot of the content out there, it's biased to one company. So we partner with the Linux Foundation, the CNCF, and O'Reilly, the books, to bring unlimited access to all the content, to have a cloud sandbox, so you don't learn in a vacuum. And then look, we really went from top to bottom and bottom up to really explain to people why this mattered. And for us, it was timeliness, to keep up with the pace of relevance. And, people say, well, I was on a call today with someone that said, you don't have competition. I'm like, no, we do have competition, and that's China and Russia and other countries that innovate. But we also have competition within the commercial side, where we need to keep up and we need to innovate, and we need to not waste the taxpayer money. I mean, for me, it's all about also making sure that our kids will be able to compete in that world, 20 years from now. And, honestly, the bureaucracy of DoD makes you in such a state that you end up wasting quite a lot of money.
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit for me. I think it's on my end.
I don't know if it's on your hand or if it's on my hand. I wasn't sure. I connected to a different Wi-Fi just in case. Can you see me?
Yep. I can hear you. Your video is still frozen at the moment.
And your video is frozen too on my side. So I'm going to stop it and restart it.
There you go. You're back.
There we go. Magical. That's the beauty of being remote, and all of us working mostly from home, right?
Yep. It really is. It's incredible. Both, it's incredible how hard video conferencing is still.
Yeah, but none of it was designed to have such scale. So it's kind of a miracle we even can do this. So
exactly.
I guess we'll take it. So anyway, I was done talking. I wasn't sure what I was saying, but was probably not very smart anyway. So.
But no, that was great. Thank you for kind of speaking to some of the organizational challenge there and how y'all approach the adoption, because that is a challenge that is it's unique in scale to y'all, but is I see with every single enterprise company we talk to, right?
Yeah,
how do we grapple with the skilling up of our employees, right?
Yeah.
So I guess how far in the journey are y'all? So where, you've talked about the platform that y'all are building. Where are y'all? How is it being used? How widely? I see one of the first questions we asked that got asked was, how many clusters do y'all have? And maybe afterwards we can talk about the deploying and upgrading of Istio on them.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the scale, we are still at what I would call the beginning of the journey, although we're doing pretty much better than a lot of organizations I know on the commercial side. So for once, we're not behind, and we're pretty leading, which is exciting. And that tells you we're not wasting your taxpayer money, which is great. And then in terms of scale, there's a lot of room, right? And plus, it's endless, right? What is the end state? I can tell you what the end state is because it's moving by the time I get there anyway. So I don't know, if ever we're going to be at a state where we're like, well, we're good, right? Hopefully not. And so in terms of scale, we still have pockets of teams, right? So but we see big programs, big teams in DoD move completely their entire stack. All our nuclear programs are moving on the ground, are moving GBSD to Kubernetes and Platform One. That's a massive win for the taxpayer. That means also for people to realize why this matters. Initially, back in the day, at least, we pay big companies, right, to write software. Most of the development is not done by airmen, so it's companies showing up and doing the work. But it's often also subs and different companies, and they have a lot of different stacks, and then they integrate. So we have an integrator that brings all the stuff together, and that takes forever. And you have issues, and you have testing and disparity and drifts, and now you have to scan it, test it, and oh, by the way, the scan fails, and you're back to square one. So having a centralized government furnished DevSecOps stack that the team can come and use with all its companies and subs is game changing, because now it's not throwing over the fence, hoping for the best. It's the every day, multiple times a day, pushing code in that government furnished DevSecOps environment. And we control it. We see what's going on. We see the test every day. It's not every 5 years, every year, because software pace used to be every 5 years. I mean, in the government, sometimes a year when we are lucky, but really 2-5 years. Now we can release multiple times a day. That's game changing. I mean, we just announced a few weeks ago that we released software on a flying jet, while the jet was flying, which is, again, I'm not sure much people can top that one.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm glad I was not flying it.
We do it in a way that's super, I mean, that's the other thing also with the teams we have. We are not kidding around with nuclear surety and safety, airworthiness. We decouple, and that's back to the decoupling, right? You don't touch your flight control. It's a different part of the system. There is no chance that update will tamper with the jet and the flying components of the jet. But there's a lot of features we can bring on top of traditional flying a plane, right? There's AI, machine learning capabilities, maps. I mean, there's a bunch of classified stuff we can talk about, but you can imagine the value of having sensors and being able to swap sensors and try different things. And that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. So that actually kind of beautifully brings me into what are some of the benefits y'all have realized, been able to realize from the program so far? So obviously this has been a huge movement, and there's been a lot of people behind the joint program. So what kind of benefits have you been able to realize so far? And you've touched on quite a few, I think, already in terms of timeliness of software delivery.
Timeliness, I think, is obviously number one. I mean, you're looking at an average of between 12 to 18 months of time saved for every 5 years of initial plan time per program, per team, right? So that's massive. That's almost a third of the time. And that's without counting like the faster feedback loop of the DevSecOps benefits of delivering capability and having a faster feedback loop from your end users. I'm just talking just pure accreditation and fielding. So that's already massive win. It's also having enterprise capabilities like Platform One and Cloud One. Cloud One is our cloud office with Amazon and Azure and classified clouds, and Platform One is our DevSecOps team. Having that centralized team was saving money just by not building the same thing 20 million times. So that alone is millions, potentially up to 12.5 million per year per large program. So again, we're talking a lot of money. So that compounds to a lot of money. Add that to 60 programs, and also the culture and the fact that we have the same cyber stack. Now we're more modular. We can have these containers as Lego blocks that you can swap around and push to different teams and reuse code better. So again, another time saving and cost saving in terms of sharing code. And look, we open sourced it. We have other agencies like DHS and VA and other teams using the stack, but we also have companies. I mean, I have dozens of financial healthcare organizations, retailers reaching out and starting to consume some of the source code we have, or even partnering on open source projects to do that as a joint team. So what's the benefit of that? I mean, it's tough to quantify, right? But it's massive.
That's awesome. So let me ask a little bit
I
of
didn't answer the
yeah.
question of the poor guy. So and you asked me the question. I just want to make sure I answer this.
No, we'll come back
question.
and I'll
Okay.
yeah, let me ask one self-serving question and then we'll
Sure.
dig into the
Yeah, okay,
which is
sure.
why did so why Istio? So you know, you've talked about the
why
platform y'all
Istio?
are building. Istio is a key component there. Why Istio over, you know, other options or build it yourself or you know, whatever it is?
Yeah, I have to say options now are steadily growing. At the time there was less options. That's certainly true. We're not looking at changing right now, but the fact is when we picked, there was really no other option to do what we wanted to do, which was really for us, not just a service mesh, but really that mutual TLS enforcement denial by default and being able to issue certificates per service dynamically with no human in the loop and rotating them and whitelisting traffic to have that zero trust behavior. That was really the main reason why we picked Istio at the time. Now you have, you know, Linkerd and Kuma and others, whatever, coming with kind of the same capabilities. And there is pros and cons in every implementations and things like that. But really for us, you know, the open source components, and, you know, we had a big push with Google, making sure they start, you know, really opening also the governance and a lot of that stuff with Istio, because, you know, we want to make sure that no single company is controlling the landscape, and both on the trademark. So why the trademark came to be is really because I complain about it, because for us the trademark matters, because I can't mandate something that has a trademark assigned to one company. So then I could not say you have to use Istio, because it would be mandating a company's product, even though it's open source. Doesn't matter. So by making it part of a non-profit, that solved that problem. So we might not help a lot of people for that piece, but the next piece, of course, is the technical steering and the steering groups and the governance. That's obviously for us very important, and not one company can push the single-sided decisions. And I think we're getting there, so that's exciting to see. But I think, you know, obviously Istio has been leading the pack. And that was always very important to us to keep up. A lot of changes. My team is not always happy with the breaking changes of 1.6 and 1.7. So you know that, and we're getting better. And, you know, it's a big lot of learning. You know, not everyone understands how a service mesh works and the benefits of it. But I think once you get it, and once you start also embracing the sidecar model, you can do a lot of pretty cool stuff.
Yep. Awesome. So with that, thank you for kind of a wonderful intro and overview of what y'all are doing, what y'all have accomplished, what y'all have been able to deliver. So let's start working through some of the questions from the audience. So I think the first one, you touched on some of the Kubernetes cluster stuff, and you've alluded to, but I think didn't come out and say, like, how do y'all actually manage deploying and upgrading Istio there?
Yeah, so everything we do is GitOps. So we don't really use federation, mostly because it's just a nightmare for classification reasons. And look, you know, you don't want to have one weapon systems compromised and then everything is compromised at the same time. So having some sort of you know, siloed you know stack makes sense, right? And so we're not there willing. It's not that we're not capable, we're just not willing to go to federation. But what we're doing, though, is that a central source code of truth of Terraform and a cluster API and every option we have in terms of Kubernetes from the cloud to all the way to Kubernetes, you know, from running on vSphere, on Amazon, on Azure, or at the edge. All that code is in the same repo, so there's no drift, and we can instantiate it, you know, like cattle. And we treat our cluster as cattle. So for us, it's like, you know, you can kill it every night or you know, every day. I don't care. Everything is cattle, not just the containers, right? So once you really embrace that GitOps mentality of everything is code and you're networking, and that's how we do our change management, right? How many set of eyes do we have on code change? And, you know, many companies do this, right? SpaceX and others, where you know, you need 3 set of eyes on code to approve some, you know, critical code change, maybe just 2 for other stuff, but, you know, you decide how many you do per repo, and then we segment our code, right, per container, service mesh, platform, infrastructure, Terraform code and stuff like that, right? So we cut that into layers, and then we can update that, and then we can instantiate it on classified gapped environments, on different clouds, on different providers, at the edge, on the weapons, anywhere. It's just a push button deployment.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome. So the next one here is about Docker and the security of Docker. So why are containers okay for y'all to use?
Yeah, and so we don't use Docker, EE, or all that stuff. We use Kubernetes, and we have multiple distributions of Kubernetes. They have to be CNCF compliant. They have to work air gapped. That's a mandate. So for us, anything that's the control plane is running on the cloud, and we don't have access to that, is not an option. We have to control everything, as you can imagine. You don't want to have a control plane running somewhere else that you don't know what's going to happen to it. And so, we centrally accredit and scan each distribution. In fact, the code of Convoy and VMware and even upstream Kubernetes, and we have a bunch OpenShift and Convoy. I mean, everything is on the source my repo, and I put I'll put the link on the chat so people can go and see that. But really, that's where we centrally harden the distros and we scan them. And look, if it's good enough for weapon systems, I'm pretty sure you should be able to convince your boss to use it too, right? And use us as a reference, right? But yeah, we do a lot of hardening and scanning, and we have a many advanced setting, right, on Kubernetes to harden. We use Open Policy Agent, right, OPA, to have some regular policies. We use, of course, Twistlock and Anchor.
Oh no, we lost him again. Sorry, folks. We'll hopefully soon here. The internet's always fun.
And I got disconnected again.
Hey, welcome back. There you are.
I don't know what's going on. I never have a problem, but of course,
only when it's showtime.
Stable.
Yeah, only when it's showtime.
I do a lot of these, and that's the first time I'm having so many problems. I have 4 Wi-Fi's with a fancy thing, and I guess it's not my day. But I'm sorry. But I guess you heard what I said. You heard what I said, right? Oh no.
Yeah. So heard all the way up to the very end there.
Yeah. So I kind of forgot what I was saying, but I was saying we have all the different distributions. So use that and use our hardening and look, I would not use, I don't mind using the Docker runtime, but I would not use Docker without Kubernetes and without, the orchestration. That's what we use, but
yeah,
that's me.
All right, I'm gonna hop around a little bit in the questions. I'm gonna just because I want us to get to some. So I think you've already spoken to kind of some of the impact of the Istio donation to the OUC. For y'all, yep. That was a big thing to be able to use it.
To use it. Yep. In Monday.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So so I want to come down here and so y'all are moving into cloud. Obviously, that's been very public. Are you going with hybrid deployments? And if you are going with hybrid deployments, how are you starting to actually do that networking and keep that secure?
Yeah, we're completely cloud agnostic. The entire stack is built, using Terraform and even our single sign-on, and we really abstract every layer. We use Keycloak for single sign-on. We don't directly tap into APIs. Even for stuff like Lambda, we don't use Lambda. We use Knative. So we don't get locked into a single cloud provider. We use Kubeflow for AI machine learning, deep learning. So everything is designed to be abstracted. We use Terraform, so we don't use CloudFormation or Blueprints. So we're multi-cloud, both Amazon and Azure today. Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you. So what's your metric and logging strategy? And this is also maybe doubly interesting because y'all have such a disparate set of environments that you need to deal with there.
Yeah, that's very difficult, right? To aggregate the logs, it's almost impossible. First, you can't do it across classification level, or then you end up at the highest classification level, which means people without the highest clearance cannot see anything, which defeats the point of DevSecOps. So you don't have the feedback loop to the team. So we do it per cluster. We use EFK per cluster today. And we aggregate, and then we have traditional alerting, Prometheus, and all that kind of stuff. We use Kiali, right? Stuff like that. Metrics, of course, we also track the DORA metrics, right? The mean time to production, mean time to recovery, all that kind of stuff. We try to automate by using Jira tickets and GitLab commits and try to see how quickly does a container gets deployed, but when they get deployed on the classified side, it's very difficult to be able to track that kind of stuff because we can't really do that feedback loop. Although we're trying to see how we declassify just the simple fact that the container was deployed, so at least the team knows that the deploy worked successfully, so they don't have to know where it went or how that went to the classified side if they don't have a clearance, but they know it. We have probably the biggest impediments, right? Even if you compare with the financial industry, they have to do air gap, but they don't have the classification nightmare we have, and the size we have. It's just everything is compounded, right? But we have enough to know for each cluster and each team exactly kind of how well they're doing, and we track tickets in Jira and Confluence, and we use GitLab also. Some teams use GitLab CI as well, and then we use Argo CD. I didn't talk about that, but we use Argo. We don't push right from CI CD. We pull from Git. So you have ports open of Kubernetes open. So we use Argo for that. So
awesome, thank you. So again, I'm just going to kind of hop around a little bit so we get a little bit of variety here across what we're talking about. So how do y'all approach multi-tenancy? I think this is one that's maybe very relevant for a lot of folks trying to implement Kubernetes today.
Yeah, so we have two modes, right? In Platform 1, we have what we call the party bus, which is our multi-tenant environment. And then we have the Big Bang, which is a dedicated instance of Platform 1 on any classification level. That's really for the bigger programs. They don't want to share. They're not going to do multi-tenant, it's too risky, just for cyber reasons, right? And so the smaller teams that have less money, they want to share. And we also have a big engagement called ABMS that's sharing across DoD. And so that is where we go with the party bus. And the party bus is just a multi-tenant environment where we manage the stack for the team, and we just implement, traditional RBAC, ABAC. We did a pretty cool single sign-on stuff to be able to be very granular. We also use AppGate, which is a zero trust stack for cloud providers and on-premise, to be able to even go down to whitelisting specific resources that are not always on the behind the service mesh. So we can do a lot of things. We could, we have different classification levels. So you could say based on the device I use and the state of the device I use, if it's a bring on device or if it's a government furnished device, if it's a mobile, if it's a tablet, if it's a laptop, if it's in a classified space, if it's not, then you can grant access to resources and have more and more access to things, or the opposite, not a whitelist based on the state of the device if it's not patched or updated. So we have what we call the cloud native access point, which is how we connect to our enclave on the cloud. And that architecture is on the website. So I put the link of the website if people want to see how we architected our zero trust access to the cloud. That's how we connect to resources on the cloud.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. How has adopting more open source impacted overall cybersecurity for DoD? Has that made y'all more secure, less secure? How has that kind of impacted the overall model?
First, you're going to have to find me a piece of software that doesn't use open source somewhere anyway, right? In a dependency or something we don't even know about. But I would say it's certainly a risk, but at the same time, it's, I think, massive improvement. We have eyes on code. We know what's going on. We can scan it. We can have, we can have teams embedded into the upstream teams. We can push commits back to patch stuff, which we've done multiple times already on Kubernetes and multiple projects, where we find issues and we push. We have companies push back fixes. So I think it's a massive improvement of security. The key is, of course, to do what we did, which is that centralized approved set of libraries and containers. So we understand the supply chain, we understand the bill of material, the dependencies, the risk. We scan it, we centrally approve it, we centrally update it. We work with 80+ companies to push us updates, also of their cuts or their costs. Now that's a new thing, right? Commercial open source software that companies like Confluent or Elastic, right? That brings us supported version of the open source software, and they push these updates directly to my repo automatically, centrally. I mandate that it's automated. There is no human. We have signing and integrity checks and making sure that the code wasn't tampered. We scan it. We have automation of CVEs. Once they are whitelisted for that container, then they are approved. If there's a new CVE and a new release, it's a manual review again with multiple set of eyes on the CVE, 3 set of eyes. It goes all the way to me for the final approval of each container. So it's a lot of eyes on code, and we found stuff that I can tell you even a lot of different teams in the government and outside of the government missed for years, including in some of the most used projects that everybody used, and we made them fix it. And they were mostly marking that as false positives, and it was not a false positive. So yeah, that's how we do it.
That's awesome. I know somebody asked in the questions here, how are the links being sent? They're posted in the Zoom chat.
Why. No, but I put it just to the panelists. So I need to put it,
did.
That's my mistake. I'll put it to all the attendees, and that's gonna.
I just did all that too. And we'll also, useful. And in the email recap, we'll send to everybody as well. We'll make sure that those links.
Yeah, my mistake. I was just chatting to the panelists, so that's not very helpful.
So yeah, there you go. You should be able to see in the Zoom chat now.
Yeah, I just chatted again. So there we go.
Yeah, so here's an interesting one. Why did y'all adopt a full service mesh and not just like some ingress controllers, for example?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think once you move to microservices and containers, you're going to have that east and west traffic management that's completely different from your north and south traffic, right? And so ingress is going to help you with that. And in fact, you can use the ingress for Envoy or Istio, right? And have that north-south traffic from Kubernetes, but you're going to need something to manage your east and west traffic, particularly to make sure lateral movement is limited, right? So you don't want a bad actor having access to one containers and be able to talk to all of the containers and just laterally move to your cron rules. So we whitelist, right, traffic between containers down to the container level, and that's how we enforce zero trust. That's why you need a service mesh. But service mesh also brings you so many more features, right? I mean, we can talk about even chaos engineering with fault injection. You can talk about modern routing with A/B testing, canary release, all that kind of stuff. All the layer 7 load balancing, dynamic routing. I mean, you know that better than I do.
It's the litany,
right?
There's a whole we can fill up the rest of the time just listen to the features, right?
There is the main features that and the key, right, is so people don't understand why, but that if you don't do that, if you don't use a service mesh, you end up having to do it per programming language, per microservice, and now you're tightly coupled when you release, and you're going to have new things you're going to need to do for service discovery and all the authentication, encryption stuff. And let's say you need to update your encryption bits. Now you have to update all your containers where you could just update your sidecar service mesh, and now you're decoupled. And that alone is worth using a service mesh.
Yeah, well, and one of the other elements there too is the test matrix that explodes as you start to build these per language frameworks that we need to make sure work across all the combinations of all the versions that are deployed. And especially because in app, like you said, it's a rebuild and redeploy, which is far more costly than redeploying just a sidecar.
Yeah. It's I don't think you can succeed honestly today at any kind of scale, a meaningful scale, without a service mesh. It would be very short-sighted. I don't think you can succeed in 2020, maybe in 2018, but not in 2020. Right?
I like that. We're gonna clip that.
I mean it.
Good. Yeah. No, I agree. Right. I think it's you certainly need all of the features that a service mesh provides to have a legitimate distributed system, and I definitely think that it being assembled in that way is really nice. Makes it the easiest to consume that we've seen so far. So maybe I'll put these two together, or maybe I'll ask first, what are some of the big challenges y'all have seen in adopting Istio? And have there been any optimizations or tweaks or things that y'all have had to do specifically with Istio to be able to utilize it?
Well, look, it's still a new, at least recent project, right? No disrespect, but they were breaking changes. I mean, of course, the Istio consolidation of into the daemon, was a big lift. But we found, gaps in documentation. I think the documentation is definitely something that still has some issues. And we're pushing also. We're doing stuff that not many people do in an environment that not many people use, with stuff that's not just the basic HTTP stuff. So, we're finding stuff
lots of rough corners.
Yeah, most people would probably not care or think about if they're doing some type of web app. So that's what it is. But everything we do, we push it back to the community. So we're not forking, we're not making DoD custom changes. So that's the good news, is we are giving as much back as we're taking from the community.
Yeah, and I could say from like the Istio side, that's been one of the really cool things to see, right? Is having folks from one platform come and approach the community and say, hey, how can we help? How can we start to contribute back meaningfully and all, which has been really excellent to see. Excellent. And so, yeah, and then as far as specific optimizations and tweaks, so I think I can maybe answer this one. So far, no, there haven't been any specific things. It's a stock Istio that's deployed there today.
Yep.
So what about how is using Kubernetes at Edge? How's that going overall? And what's been the experience there? What issues have y'all hit?
It's not just at the edge. I think the biggest complexity, and why I've been yelling a lot at a lot of the Kubernetes distros, who by the way are putting the entire community at risk by creating very highly opinionated Kubernetes distributions, literally defeating the point of Kubernetes being modular and flexible by mandating that every little piece is exactly what they want you to use between the CNI and the CRI and the container registry, and you want to use Harbor? No way, you need to use this instead. That's the opposite of what the communities wanted, right? And so these distributions are really becoming a real problem. And I'm grateful that some companies are at least trying to bring options and be more flexible than some others. But the one size fits all is just not going to work. I think it works because people look for ease at first when they get started, but then they become smart enough and they have enough expertise to want to make their own decisions and try things out. And look, the big guys, the Red Hats, the VMwares, and all these guys, they're gonna make their own bet on some of these projects, and then you're stuck with that choice. So that's been a problem. But I guess the big issue with the edge is also the fact that most of these companies are focused on commercial clouds, and they're not thinking air-gapped. So we waited a year to get OpenShift or VMware, working on air-gapped from their last releases. A year, it's a lifetime. I mean, that's a lifetime.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In the meantime, we had to, we moved to Rancher and Convoy from Day2IQ, they were able to do it in days, because they did not come with all that opinionated stack on top to orchestrate the stack and stand up the stack, and they were able to do it in a completely air-gapped, fashion. And look, everybody is now catching up and bringing it to us, including VMware and Red Hat, air-gapped version, but it's taking way too long. So that's been one of the big issue for us at the edge. So edge could be either completely air-gapped or could be intermittent, right? So you don't have the best connectivity, obviously, when you're flying or doing on a submarine. So we have to have different means of communication, but we have to bring everything with us, including the master. So it's not just a bunch of edge devices that talk to a master control plane on the cloud. Everything has to be on the system. So looking at very lightweight. So some of the issues is how heavy, and complex Kubernetes is. So we looked at K3S, but even we did it, we use the full Kubernetes at the edge on Jets to not just the K3S distro. So, it's a case, we're still comparing and trying things out and trying to see, which one are we going to be spending more time on. But we want options anyway. So we're big enough and we have enough funding to try different things. We have a lot of different teams trying different options, but real-time OS has been an issue. So we partnered with Wind River, we partnered with Red Hat real-time, even Linux with a pre-RT patch to be able to have a real-time on Linux. So no one having to pay specific licenses. So there are a lot of options out there, and the whole landscape is completely changing. And I was even impressed with companies like Wind River starting to bring their own Kubernetes distribution as well, supporting real-time and non-real-time systems. So there's a lot going on.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to answer, somebody asked what an air-gapped system is. That's just a system that's not connected to the internet. So that's where we. So that's where the
or anything.
Not just or anything at all, right?
completely
it's network to
siloed.
itself. Yeah, network to itself and cut off from the
You have to go physically in there to connect to it, right? You cannot. There's no VPN. It's air gap, the real air gap. I mean, there's fake air gap that people use.
Yeah, you can like VPN
often,
into a bastion.
where
That's
you
like
VPN into a bastion host. That is somewhat air gap, but it's not the real air gap. Is there's no connectivity to anything
like
else
literally
than
at a
that
physical
network.
layer. There's no
Yeah,
connectivity to
physical
other
layer.
networks.
That's a real one, but not always it's at that layer, but usually at least no internet. You have to assume no internet, so you can start pulling stuff, which is always a big issue, right? We ask all our containers to stop pulling stuff left and right, and people do a terrible job at knowing the dependencies. I can tell you that. That's been a big issue from a lot of SaaS products. Right, exactly. They're just pulling so much stuff left and right, and they don't even know where it's coming from. It's dependencies of dependencies that they inherit. But when you give me a container, you're in charge of giving me all of the dependencies updated, and you're responsible for everything you bring with that container. So that's part of the job.
Yeah. This may be actually my favorite question that's been asked so far, which is, so what do you think, and this is more for you personally rather than the joint program, but what do you think is the primary reason for your success, right? So this, as this question states, DoD is a huge org with a lot of inertia, right? And you've been able to enact some fairly radical changes. So why do you think you've been successful? What are maybe some of the lessons that some of us could take out of that?
It's a French accent. No, I don't know. No, I think, look, I think first I was lucky, right? I went in at the right time where the leadership wanted to push, the bottom was ready. There was already a team starting to do a lot of great stuff like SRN. So a lot of good stuff happening. I think the fact that I made enough money not to have to care if people fire me definitely brings a lot of benefits. So I can do things that most people probably would not dare to do. And one day I will be fired, that's for sure. I will not leave the department by myself. But, so far I'm still here. But I think that's been probably, and look, coalition, I'm not trying to hijack the credit or we're trying to be open. We open source everything. We invited every DoD team outside of the Air Force and the Navy, the Army, and so on. So I think that's been great to see, having already that a community of practice come together, and we have 1,400 people on that engagement. That's pretty incredible. Leadership people. That's not just Mr. Anybody, right? It's a lot of very senior people in the DoD. That's pretty amazing.
No, that's awesome. All right, so back to as we're kind of we just have a couple questions left, or a couple minutes left for questions.
Yeah.
So how are y'all doing with stuff that you can't get into the service mesh?
So stuff that cannot get into the service mesh?
Or y'all haven't been able to yet, or how are y'all starting to address some of those things, right?
Some of the legacy stuff.
Yeah, so some of the legacy stuff, I know even maybe some of the prepackaged software that y'all have gotten doesn't play so nicely with like Istio, for example, as well.
Right.
So how have y'all been navigating some of that? Because I think this is a very relevant challenge, especially for, you named legacy as a perfect example, right? How do we incorporate these other networked appliances that are not part of my mesh?
Yeah, look, that's another benefit of Istio, supporting some VM capable and still bringing, I guess, the mesh, extending the mesh, I guess, to outside of Kubernetes. But we don't do much of that. We use a zero trust stack for the rest with AppGate, which does a lot of the same benefits for VMs that we get from Istio, although there's no decoupling and all that other stuff, but it does the same cyber benefits. The legacy stuff, there's not an easy answer, right? It's a case by case. You have to, so what we end up doing is we strangle it, right? We use a strangler pattern. We have a whole training on the website. If you go on software.dev.mil, you're going to see a lot of good stuff there. There's a training section with a lot of good content. But the strangle pattern is what we end up doing to strangle the legacy and move it to containers and service mesh. And by definition, it's going to move. Not everything can be done, and it's going to take time. It's a matter of time. And we mitigate the cyber risk ready at first. And we try not to touch the legacy and update the legacy and bring the new stuff as new code. So you don't keep piling on your debt and adding on top of that, and you already stop the bleeding. And that's really something that you have to stick to. If you start cheating the system and start adding stuff to the legacy, other than just basic updating and patching of cyber issues, then you're going to just compound your problem. So really sticking to the Strangler pattern is the only way to modernize IT anyway. So that's what I will say for that.
Yep, I'd agree. Yeah, we've seen exactly the same thing, right? With some of the other folks that we've worked with. All right, so I'll ask this one, last one, I think probably that we'll get to, and you can pitch. So for folks that are already working with the DoD, for DoD contractors, how can they start to get involved with the DSUP or with the joint program? I should say.
Yeah. So there are multiple ways. I would say for small companies, it is very easy to go on the repo one and push your containers. So if you have containers that can be benefiting the DoD, whether it's products or services. So if you have, let's start with products. If you have products, push it to the Iron Bank, and the software.dev.mil/dsub/documents as the container onboarding guide. So you can follow that and get your container approved for DoD use. Once you're approved, we can buy it, right? So some companies do it in 2 weeks, some take a month, but it's pretty quick. It's not very hard. If you already have containers, it's a matter of days to do it. And then you approve DoD-wide all the way to the highest classification levels, and you can be used anywhere. Now you can sell your licenses, and we have contract vehicle to put you, and we can introduce you to companies that can be your reseller. Many companies don't want to be dealing with DoD contracts, and they use resellers. There's a bunch of them. We have them on contracts, so just reach out to us, and I'll put the email of my office, so you can directly reach out and ask questions if you want to be introduced to some of these resellers. There's multiple options, but there's a few we have on contract that's very easy, and they can onboard you in days. What used to take a year now takes days. And then if you just have services and you don't sell products and you don't sell licenses and you just sell a service, maybe it's talent, maybe it's people, DevSecOps engineers, cyber reliability engineers, expert that know Istio, whatever. We take it also. We need a lot of help, and we have contract vehicles for that. It's really easier to become a sub to some of the big companies we have on contract, because dealing with DoD is a nightmare. So you probably
there's no getting around
the sub.
Yeah, there's a lot of that bureaucracy. There's no getting around.
Yeah, it's a lot, and most people just, there is no benefit for you to, sure, they're going to take a cut on top of you, but that's what it is anyway. We do it all the time, and it's what it is. So reach out to us if you want to, both case, if you have a product, or if you want to have a service, or if you have talent, people that you think would make sense. They have to be US citizens. That's what it is. So you cannot do much with DoD without being US citizens for the talent piece. Although I have a French accent, I'm a US citizen. Don't be fooled by the accent. So.
No, perfect. Thank you. And hey, thank you for taking time out today to chat with everybody and answer a lot of the questions here. We really appreciate it. I know you're super busy.
Oh, no, that's why we're here. We want to create a community, and we want to share. And for us, like I said, the code is open source. It's a two-way street. If you have good stuff, if you have good ideas, if you even see issues in our code, if you see, you're protecting your kids, you're protecting your country by coming and helping us make it better. So take a look at the source code, take a look at, we do hackathons. We just did one 2 weeks ago. But again, don't wait for specific events to do this. You can always shoot us an email and be like, hey, this code, can I push a merge request? I have a few ideas. I think this could be better. We always want to improve and learn and move faster, better, stronger together.
Awesome. Hey, thank you. Absolutely wonderful. Had a really great talk. We appreciate it. And we'll follow up everybody with a lot of the links that were posted in chat. We'll follow up with email along with the recording and a transcript as well. So awesome. Thank you everybody for taking time. Thanks for taking time. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.